Welcome back. I'm Joanne Leon, and this is Around the Empire episode 207 Extra, U.S. Return to the Iran Deal, a bonus segment for the much appreciated patrons of the show. All right, so bonus question for you. Your opinion. I haven't dug into this deeply yet. I did hear your interview with Scott about getting back into the Iran deal. But there was something else in a different article that I read. And then we also now have Biden's foreign policy speech. So we've got all those things to put together in our thoughts and analysis. You know, he says he's going to end the war in Yemen and, taking a little more of a hard line on getting back into the Iran deal, trying to get more out of it, which I think is exactly what the Trump administration was doing, something on the missile program. But something that Biden mentioned in that speech when he went on quite a bit about stopping support for Saudi Arabia in the for offensive operations in the war in Yemen. But then he mentioned something about what we're not going to back down on defense. And I've heard that there may be even more deployment to Saudi Arabia.
So, yes, this is true. In fact, there's a story last week, I can't remember how many days ago exactly, that General McKenzie, the esteemed commander of Central Command, who has been, in my view, my very considered view, the primary moving force behind the hard line with regard to deployments in the region, particularly the idea of a carrier task group, which would involve other naval vessels, of course, but particularly the aircraft carrier with lots of airplanes that can, fly off and bomb Iran. That's what he wanted the most, and he pushed very hard for it. And thus far, he's been successful in that. And he has distinguished himself as a very powerful figure within the Pentagon, within the military, not Pentagon physically in Washington, D.C. or outside Washington, but in the sense of the national security state. And he clearly wants to have more places, particularly in Saudi Arabia, to disperse U.S. forces, which are now in the region, because they're extremely vulnerable, and he admits this very openly, to Iranian longer range missiles. So he and the Saudis are now working out, and I don't think it has been completely worked out yet, a whole new array of bases which the United States will move into in Saudi Arabia, which are, he refers to them as lily pads, where they can move in quickly and move out quickly. They're smaller, more dispersed bases, but it will be a way of allowing the United States to avoid the Iranian missiles. And it's the same sort of thing that the US is applying in East Asia and the Indo-Pacific region with regard to China. So that's a new development in Middle East policy that is worth watching, keeping your eye on.
Yeah. And in an article I read, that it mentioned that this concept of an Arab NATO, which always seemed to be just kind of an absurd, hard to implement, never happened kind of thing. But now with the normalization of relations between Israel and some of the Gulf states, with Qatar coming back into the fold, maybe, and, with the attack on the Saudi oil facilities, they may have decided that that is something that they need. And so that maybe would actually happen. Now, if there was an Arab NATO, wouldn't that mainly be do we really think that they are going to run those bases and those operations and those air forces and things? Or
Well,
are we going to be in the middle of that? I think we are.
if there were an Arab NATO, we'd be in the middle of it. No question about that. I mean, the Saudis are so totally incapable of running their own military show. I mean, that's been just a major fact of life for U.S. personnel for decades now. Nobody doubts that. That hasn't changed. But I don't think that an Arab NATO is really in the cards for two reasons. One, I don't think the Israelis want to be in a formal alliance. They prefer the status quo because they're getting all the benefits and none of the drawbacks. They are not subject to any formal process by which their own policies would be reviewed, and they might be subject to pressure. And so, as far as I'm concerned, I would not expect the Israelis to push for that or to want to have that. And on the other side, I don't think the United States is interested in taking on formal defense commitments to the Saudis or the UAE. I think they regard it as too dangerous and too costly. And their main priority at this point is China. And so I think for all those reasons, I would not expect that to happen.
So you think maybe it is I don't know, sort of a half measure? The lily pad, I mean, wasn't it Rumsfeld who came up with that? And I believe we did that all. It was implemented through the Obama administration, small bases with local.
Right. There have been lily pad bases in other parts of the world. This is the first time it's been applied here in mainland, in Saudi Arabia, and this is a new development, which it suggests a frame of mind on the part of the CENTCOM commander that we are not going to buckle under to Iranian pressure. We're going to fight back in order to maintain our deterrent. The problem here is that, to go back to the point about the Biden administration's policy, there's a very serious danger here that they are going to be just unwittingly or without intending to getting into very dangerous territory in their policy toward Iran, because the Iranians are simply not going to buckle under their pressure. They cannot. They do not have the political freedom to do so. The political opinion and the legislative body in Iran are both moving massively toward a much more harder line viewpoint toward the JCPOA and toward the United States.
Yeah.
So what they're trying to do is impossible, and I'm just afraid that this outfit is not being realistic. I think that they so covet the idea of having leverage over the Iranians. They see the Trump set of sanctions against Iran that were so effective in reducing their oil exports as the real, hard line, high card that they have against the Iranians. They don't want to give it up. And so they've gotten themselves in a fixated situation. And I think it's extremely dangerous. It's more dangerous than the Obama administration ever was in its view of the situation.
Yeah. I tend to agree. All right. Well, I don't want to keep you any longer. Let's make sure everybody knows where to find you and how to support your work and how to follow you. Okay.
One word: gray zone. The gray zone.
Okay.
And I urge people to follow other people, especially Max Blumenthal at the Gray Zone. They're doing great investigative work.
Great. Thanks so much, Gareth. Great to talk with you again.
Thank you, Joanne. I appreciate your interest.
Thanks for listening. A special thanks to Gareth Porter. Follow Gareth on Twitter at Gareth Porter. Find his work at The Gray Zone. And read his most recent book, authored with John Kiriakou, titled The CIA Insider's Guide to the Iran Crisis, From CIA coup to the brink of war. This podcast is independent media. Listener support's important. Patreon.com/AroundTheEmpire. PayPal.me/AroundTheEmpirePod. Find the podcast on any mobile podcast app, on the website AroundTheEmpire.com, on Patreon, or on YouTube. If you're listening on YouTube, don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Stay tuned for some new platforms where you will also be able to find this show. Follow on Twitter @AroundTheEmpire, and we'll see you next time. Take care, everybody.